This is Cher, and I'm here with Jason and Rob. Guys, if you had to describe this podcast in 5 words or less, what would you say?
I'm going to go with Wile E. Coyote guzzling gasoline.
I'm thinking climate change, diarrhea, hurricane.
Are you serious? Maybe I should do this thing on my own.
Fine. It's a show about how to stay sane in a world where there's too many people consuming too much stuff and the planet can't take it anymore.
You had me at diarrhea.
Caution, if you're allergic to 4-letter words, you might want to try a different podcast. So we're all activists. You guys have gone out and tabled at events and tried to convince people of things?
I sit around. I'm not very active.
Okay, we got one sitter, a couple of activists. You used to have a radio show, Jason.
That's true, yeah.
So one time I was at a conference and I was tabling. The whole idea was I was helping people understand that the economy can't grow infinitely on a finite planet. As you can imagine, thousands of people were rushing up to the table.
Lined out the door. Yeah.
It was incredible. But the one that I remember most, there was this one guy who came up to me toward the end of the day who said, I gave my spiel, and he said, "Oh, well, you don't have to worry about that."
Okay.
So I'm like, well, enlighten me. Why?
We're going to populate Mars? Is that why?
No. He said, I've got this idea for how we can generate all the energy that we need, and it'll solve all our issues with wealth and money, poverty, and I've got it.
He must be really wealthy
hemp
right now.
or thorium. Those are my two guesses.
Yeah, those are good tries, but you'd be shocked to learn it's exercise bikes.
What?
So this guy says, here's what we do. We set up these gyms. We're going to put out an array of exercise bikes. When you pedal on them, you're going to generate electricity. And you'll have a little magnetic card, reader thing in there, and you put your card in, and based on how much, Jason's already getting antsy here, based on how much electricity you generate, it'll fill your card with money, and you can go about your day spending on whatever things you can dream of.
Okay, I got to step up here at the moment.
You could buy a grain of rice.
Exactly. So there was this poster going around like Facebook. It was power your home for a day with a 20-minute workout. And they showed this like 60-year-old guy in a recliner bike drinking orange juice. And the idea was in 20 minutes, he'd power his home. And
sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going, wait a second. And a typical human can put out maybe 100 watts, for like 20 minutes or an hour, instantaneous output.
Yeah,
so
you're getting some good exercise there.
100 watts. I mean, that sounds like a lot.
Well, so if you do 100 watts for an hour, and they were advertising 20 minutes, but 100 watts for an hour, it's 100 watt hours.
Right.
Okay, the average American home is something like 30 kilowatt hours. So that's 30,000 watt hours a day of energy use. Okay, and that's just in your home. That's not your office or your car or industry, the farming that happens to feed your...
So they forgot to mention the 300 other people in the back that are pedaling the entire day long.
Right, it's absurd.
All you got to do is think about one operation in your house.
Okay,
to run a load of laundry, that's 500 watts. So... By this person who visited me at the conference, by their take, you'd have 5 of these people
for an hour
to get one load of laundry.
Yeah, it's only 47 minutes than the load I do.
So, that's all we need, right? Yeah. We're just gonna do laundry all day long.
Oh yeah, yeah, no problem.
It reminds me of have you guys seen that video? It's on YouTube. Robert versus the toaster.
Oh yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. So he's this German Olympic athlete, right? Huge guy. Not one of these long distance, cyclists, but one of those guys that are like
sprint
track guys.
Yeah, like the Lance Armstrong. They take like stuff to make your hemoglobin work better, hematocrit or so. This guy's taking steroids.
Right.
I mean, he is huge. He is massive.
He
looks.
Right.
In
Legs
fact,
like tree trunks.
He reminds me of Mr. Incredible from the Incredibles. The Pixar thing.
Right.
He actually looks like that.
He's
he's an anvil of a man.
Right. So this video had him basically see if he could toast a piece of bread. Just pedaling a bike, right?
Okay.
And he was working his ass off. I mean, I don't even know what the equivalent of gear he would have been in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To pedal this thing. But he was generating something, I think, like...
I'm sure his sprocket was the size of a hula hoop.
Right,
Yeah.
enormous, right? And I think he generated like 700 watts, and he held that for, I don't know, certainly less than 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Working his ass off to try to get this little piece of bread toasted.
I mean, based on what you said, like if one of us normal humans can ride for an hour at 100 watts, that guy's doing seven times that.
Yeah, for a short period.
But
yeah, that's basically the output of a horse.
Right.
But only for like a couple minutes.
That's probably his nickname.
I think that's what they
Horse.
call steroids, horse, right? Like, so he did that, and he was spent at the end. I think he said something about how he could taste blood in his mouth when he was done.
He was tired.
And he just, bing.
And it was
get this
barely
little,
toasted.
Yeah, a little piece of bread that you got to get the butter on really fast if you want it to melt.
Yeah, it was white bread, and you could barely see a brown hue to it.
Exactly.
It wasn't that good.
Yeah, and they did that video, I think, in order to help people sort of understand how much energy it takes to even, toast a piece of bread.
So I once did that. It wasn't bread, but I was on this. It's kind of weird. I was on a cross-country bicycle trip.
Okay.
So
You're
I
fit.
was in bicycling shape.
Yeah.
And we had made it over the mountains in the state of Washington and over to Montana, and we stopped at a place called Libby Dam. It's one of these big hydro dams. It backs up a lake all the way up into Canada.
Okay.
They actually call it Lake Koocanusa, which stands for the Kootenai River, Canada, and USA.
That's awesome.
Koocanusa.
Great name.
What a great name.
Yeah, great name.
So inside this dam, there's exhibits to explain what's going on. And one of the things they had was a bicycle hooked up to some light bulbs. So you pedal it, and it'll light the light bulbs. And I was able to light like half a light bulb for like half a second.
Dim flickering.
Yeah, it was so sad. I was like, I'm going to tear this thing up. I've been biking across the country. Yeah, nothing. Like
Robert would have looked at you with pity.
Oh, he would have just squished me like an ant between his fingers.
Oh my god.
Unfortunately, people don't have that experience very often, right?
No.
So they don't get that
We
at all.
take
So this
all
guy
of
that
it.
came up to you, at this conference, well-intentioned, I'm sure, thought he had this epiphany, brilliant idea. Hey, we could address the obesity crisis in the United States and generate all the energy that we possibly need,
Right.
Just didn't really have a sense of
He's
what-
off. He's off by like orders of
several
magnitude.
orders of magnitude.
Yeah. Well, you guys know that whenever I think about these things, my twisted mind always goes to pop culture.
Of course.
And so I thought of a pop culture reference to how little we know about energy. So take a listen. This is from the movie Back to the Future.
Whoa, this is it. This is the part coming up, Doc.
No. This sucker's electrical. But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
What did I just say?
Flux capacitor stores. This sucker's electrical. But I need a nuclear reaction to generate the 1.21 gigawatts of electricity.
1.21 gigawatts!
1.21 gigawatts!
Great Scott! What the hell is a gigawatt?
What the hell is a gigawatt?
I was thinking. What the hell
That's
is
a
a
good
gigawatt?
question. What is a
What the
gigawatt?
hell is a gigawatt?
So
You think the writer didn't know the first thing meant energy either?
So, yeah, probably. Actually, there's a big debate about this, and I think the director of the film addressed it. So it should be gigawatt, like,
Okay.
a gigabyte, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Gigawatt.
Gigawatt.
But
I'm just a gigawatt.
but here's the crazy
It's
thing.
a David Lee Roth song.
Yeah, great.
Wow,
Another 80s reference.
I thought I had the shitty pop culture references.
Sorry
but
about that.
Way to,
Great pants.
yeah.
Great pants.
Okay, so the controversy is that you actually can legally pronounce that word gigawatt.
Legally?
Yes.
Okay.
It is not illegal.
That's
No,
good.
It's an
There's
alternate
a court case.
It's an alternate pronunciation
Because
but,
of the movie?
No. Originally, and so I think their science advisor had pronounced it that way, but in the actual script they spelled it like Jiga, gigawatt. So, but that's the reality. What
Right.
the hell is a gigawatt?
It's a big number.
It is a very big number. That's true.
A lot of bike pedaling. How many people does it take to pedal to a gigawatt?
1.21 gigawatts.
And it's in a DeLorean, for God's sake. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not on a bike. Yeah. I want a DeLorean bike with those doors that rise up
That'd
from
be
the
awesome.
side.
Yeah, you could make one. I mean, they have recumbent bikes, right? You just add those doors to it. I'm sure you could pedal really far with those doors on.
What year did that movie come out? The first
1985.
one? Oh, that was a good year. Man, I missed the mid-'80s.
Yeah. Well, here we are in the late 2000s, and
we don't know any better.
No.
We know just as much as we did then.
Are we supposed to be able to time travel by now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we should
didn't Marty McFly last year? He was like flying on skateboards.
Yeah,
and whatever.
skateboards that float. Where's that? It's a far cry from what we call a hoverboard now, and
Right.
what he had.
Oh, and the shoes that tie themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've pretty much established that we're energy idiots. We're completely illiterate. So we were thinking about what would you need to know if you were going to understand energy, and I think you need to answer 4 questions. And that's: how important is it for what we're doing in society? How powerful is it? How cheap is it? And how much of it is there out there?
Yeah, those are great. That's a good way to frame it. Part of the thing I think about it is like a biologist, and I look at human evolution and the evolution of society and how it's changed. And something that's really weird about humans is that we have the ability to control what's called exosomatic energy. So the somatic refers to the body. So exo is outside of the body.
Thanks for explaining that, because that's like a $10 word, right? That's like a 1.21 gigawatt word.
Yeah.
That's an SAT word.
That's an SAT word, exactly. Yeah. So endosomatic would be like, the bike pedaling energy. you pedal by exosomatic.
Well, there's some exo there because it's a bike, right?
Well, no, the energy you're applying to the pedals, that's coming from your own body.
Okay.
You're burning calories in your own body, your muscles.
Endosomatic would be Donald Trump telling you to pedal the bike.
Right. I got you. I'm just going to go back and watch some more Back to the Future while you finish this.
Yeah, watch more of that. But exosomatic is then we control energy that's not of our own body. And so the first one is like fire. So imagine building a campfire and cooking, like mastodon roast over it, and having a mastodon drumstick or something like that. Okay,
That'd be a pretty big drumstick.
it's a big it's a big
That's
drumstick.
a lot. I would feel pretty full.
Pick your teeth with the tusks afterwards.
But humans may have been using fire to cook for many thousands of years, and it has affected potentially our digestive system and our brain development.
Yeah.
So it's a huge part of evolutionary theory about humans.
Yeah, the theory is that basically that's what led to the huge advances in our brain development, right?
Right.
All the things that we're able to do now are a result of us being able to cook our food and not having to expend as much energy and digesting it and all that.
Right. And then we talk about the term horsepower refers literally to harnessing a horse and using its
Well, that's literal
energy.
too. You put a harness on the horse.
Harnessing, exactly. That's what it is. It's literal. So that's about 10 times the output of a person. A horse is about 10 times more.
Unless you're
energy
that
power.
German cyclist
Right.
guy.
We could just put a harness on Robert.
Well, imagine taking Robert, but though having him work all day at
Right,
that output.
exactly,
right?
yeah, it'd
Not
be-
much blood in the mouth.
Exactly.
he's a
That's why you
horse.
got to put a bit in there.
Yeah, exactly. So then we started to figure out how to say windmills, say in Holland or whatever, or figuring out how to have water wheels, and so we would try to extract energy from the environment and grow crops and take the straw. So prior to the Industrial Revolution, we were using exosomatic energy, but it was at a certain scale that was sort of harnessing from the environment with contemporary solar flows, either via animals or via water or wind.
Or you might get an extra few years by burning plants or cutting wood, right?
A few years of what?
Of solar energy.
Right, you can store it a bit, sure, yeah, and then release it later. So that was also important. But then what you were doing though, when we started tapping fossil fuels, is we were taking energy that was contained from previous epochs of solar radiation, and now burning that for the first time in millions of years.
And it was compressed energy, right? It was
Yeah, it's very dense. So that's an important property. And it then doesn't compete for land use either, right? So that's an interesting property. You could have an oil well in the same sort of area field that you had a farm on. So that's been sort of a transformation of our society through this various stages of sort of expanding our use of exosomatic energy.
I think one of the key things to understand too is that, and this is going to sound stupid, but I think we take it for granted, and that is energy itself. Forget the form it takes, but energy is effectively the thing that makes everything else possible.
Yeah,
without energy, we don't function. I mean, us eating food is a conversion of energy to calories that we burn, right? And so our bodies can't move without it. Our brains don't think without it. And so even on a small scale like that, without that energy, forget it.
So like bread and rice and, steak or whatever, that's all part of endosomatic energy, and that's important. But the amount of calories that we use for our own body metabolism is tiny relative now to what our society uses in the exosomatic sense. But it's all doing the same thing. It's maintaining, not in the sense of not maintaining our body or allowing us to, say, play tennis or type on a typewriter or your computer screen.
Typewriter? Who's typing on a typewriter? You're back in 1985 again.
Exactly, yeah. I learned on an IBM Selectra, I think it was called, if one dating myself.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's the entire society now requires this burning. Everything we do is burning something, whether it's metabolic or it's actually like in a in an engine somewhere.
So I always like taking this down to some kind of an example that you can follow along. And the one that I thought of, it had to do a share. You and I got to work with some people that were involved in the textile industry recently.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about clothing and what a important part of the economy that is. It's of course, agriculture and food is going to be the very base layer, but kind of next thing you'd think about from a survival perspective is shelter and clothing. And
sure.
And so I was thinking, like, what would the textile or clothing based on smaller energy flows back in the day, 2,000 years ago?
Monty Python's Life of Brian. Have you seen that?
Not recently.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the scene Life of Brian where he opens the
naked
blinds and he's naked,
Yeah.
so he's got no clothes on.
There's not a lot of clothing back then.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Well, they also did live in quite a warm, that was a
you didn't
pretty
need
warm
much.
place. Yeah.
But the idea that, you would get your clothing basically from what you could scrounge around you, from whatever fiber was available, the fig leaf around your waist or the deer skin that you could...
I mean, way back, and then when societies formed, civilizations formed and people were sedentary, right, in cities, there were forms of textiles that came from far away, but they were such a luxury. Yeah, you think about the Silk Road, these things would be transported over thousands of miles and take weeks and months to get to you. And the cost of them were really prohibitive for most people, right?
Right.
Right. But then it all goes forward and you start doing things like growing crops specifically for this. And this is, I guess, after, like, you're talking about harnessing crops, harnessing horses. And, of course, forcing people to do labor for you. You got, like, cotton fields.
Human muscle power.
Right.
Yeah, like linen, cotton, hemp fiber, all really important crops, for sure.
And then what's amazing, of course, once the Industrial Revolution comes along and you get to power things with oil or with coal, and you have the ingenuity that came along as well to be able to figure out how to actually run a combine over a field of cotton and spit out the raw material that you actually want. It's just such a huge change. I mean, I just compare that to what you're talking about, a share with the Silk Road. Instead of waiting 8 months for the perfect piece of fabric to be delivered from China overland by camels or whatever is delivering it, now you got huge machines harvesting. You're shipping that material off to East Asia. You got people processing it there, dyeing it in some other country, gets shipped over to South America for final production, back to the Walmart in North America.
Yeah, and you pay, what, $10, $20 for a T-shirt, and then you toss it, after a while because another shirt comes along.
It smells bad.
It smells bad, yeah, new fashion.
But of course you would really think, wow, we should always do it this way. It's easy, right? You just go down to the store, buy a shirt, and get it. And I think what we're talking about is we have no concept of what's behind that.
Yeah, well, you think about something like a T-shirt, and how it's made. It's not just growing and harvesting the materials to make it. It's what you had said. It's the fact is we have so much energy, and the energy is so incredibly powerful that we have now that you could actually break up the process and ship it in sort of pieces or stage it, to different parts of the world, because the labor cost is really the thing that is the driving difference in terms of how much it costs to do something. And what an amazing transformation. People tend to think of the Industrial Revolution as being something that's about human ingenuity. Who was the guy who invented the gin, the cotton gin?
Eli Whitney. Every good Georgia boy knows that.
Right,
Yeah.
Eli Whitney. So we think, God, these inventors, these geniuses, and it's true.
It was clever.
We figured out ways to harness it, but if it wasn't for the fact that we had these fossil fuels to put to use, it wouldn't have mattered.
And so there's these amazing sketches from Leonardo da Vinci's sketchbook.
Right.
And he'll sketch things like the airplane.
Right.
He came up with all these things that never materialized because he lived prior to the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
And people look back and go, Leonardo invented this, invented that. It's like, ideas
In
actually...
theory,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's these geniuses that come up and they have all these ideas, but it's this material conditions, the energetic abundance we have that allow them to develop in reality. And that's what's fascinating.
So what you all are talking about is, we can achieve things based on what we collectively have in the way of knowledge and our intellect and our ability to invent, but without that incredible power
Right, the surplus,
that came from fossil fuels, we wouldn't have gotten there. So I want to turn us to that. I want to turn us to how powerful are the fuel that we're used to running society on. And Asher, I know you hit on this in our first episode.
Yeah, it's almost inconceivable. For example, we talked about in our first episode, we talked about a barrel of oil as an example, right? So there's 42 gallons in a barrel of oil. And when you actually compare that to thinking about like human labor, we're talking about the average output a person can put out, which is something like 70 watts. And you extrapolate that over the course of a full day. Basically, you take a barrel of oil, right? And if you run the numbers, it's the equivalent of 11 years worth of human labor, right?
Yeah.
Working full time, over 2,000 hours a year, right? You get a little vacation time in there.
Sure.
I wish you'd have asked me. I would have been so wrong about the answer that I would have proven myself for the idiot that I am.
Yeah, nobody thinks about
Nobody.
that. How could you possibly imagine that this thing,
Right.
which, by the way, is kind of ruining our chances. Us burning it is ruining our chances of actually inhabiting this planet. But putting that aside, how could you possibly imagine this thing is so incredibly valuable?
It's magical.
It is magical.
I knew it was really powerful. I wouldn't have guessed 11 years. The way I knew it was powerful is one time my partner's car wouldn't start. So it was sitting in the parking lot next to the complex where I live. And the auto mechanic place was a half a mile away. And so I thought, we're not going to tow this. We're not going to pay to get a tow truck. I'm just going to push it there. So, these guys are laughing at me. If you could see my stick figure frame.
Was this here in Corvallis?
Yeah.
At least it was flat.
It's flat.
Right?
It was flat.
You've been going to the gym.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in pretty good shape, but
Yeah.
You're no Robert.
And this is no. This was not a Hummer. I mean, this was like a Honda Civic.
He's Rob.
Right? Yeah, I'm
He's
Rob.
Rob,
I'm
not Robert.
Not Robert. So I get behind the car and I start pushing it, and I push it out of the parking lot onto the street, and I'm like, oh shit, this isn't going to happen. And so luckily,
certainly not at 25 miles per hour.
well, luckily, two friends of mine were just then coming back from CrossFit.
Oh, they're buff.
they're athletes, and I said, "Hey, can you guys help me push this to the mechanic?" And they're like, "Sure." So now there's three of us pushing it. It's like the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And when we got to the mechanic,
Are you sure the brake wasn't on?
it was in neutral. When we got to the mechanic, there was a curb cut. We had to push it up the little.
Yeah.
It was so hard. We we
You're like herniating.
You had to like rock it. Right?
Yeah.
total failure, but a very good lesson in how much power. Like,
Getting a car
And if there
up a
had been
curve.
even a slightest incline,
Yeah, no
forget
chance.
it, dude. It's over.
we'd be dead.
Yeah.
It would have just rolled.
rolled right back over
You'd
you.
be too tired to get out of the way.
So, and what? How much gas would that have been? Like a tablespoon or something?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, then we take it completely for granted. So if you do the statistics, right, if you look at international statistics on energy use by nation, right, the U.S., the average per capita use is 50 barrels equivalent of oil a year per person.
50
Okay?
barrels.
Yeah.
Right.
And you said 11 years,
Right.
okay, in a barrel.
Yeah.
So that's like over 500 years, like of between 5 and
human
6
labor.
of human labor.
Yeah.
So each of us has, as if we
Per
have,
year.
yeah, as if there's 500 sort of mystical people working for us that we don't even see, and there's no HR department they can go to if they have a complaint.
Right.
Right. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you actually want to question how powerful is the energy in fossil fuel, you just have to look at the way humanity has overrun the planet. I mean,
Yeah.
it's enabled us to take over. There's 7.7 billion of us.
Remember,
now.
I brought up also in our first episode. There's only about 500,000 great apes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. We dominate.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at the landscape itself. I mean, we're living in mega cities. We've got industrial farms. We've got factories. We've got roads everywhere.
Well, it's no wonder that we industrialize everything. We mechanize everything. We try to automate everything. We try to replace human labor, even though there are more of us now.
Yeah.
Because it's so incredibly powerful and so incredibly cheap.
Exactly. So it's a get rid of people as much as you can, because if you can have the fossil fuels do the work for you, why would you have a person
That's
do it?
certainly true for, I think, corporations, right? And we're seeing that trend with automation.
Oh, yeah.
I think for most people, it's all about living like kings and queens beyond the even imagination of kings
Right.
and queens of yesteryear, right?
Right.
I mean, each of us, even ones who have, a middle income quality of life in the Western world, live well beyond the means of anything that people could have possibly imagined before the age of fossil fuels.
Yeah.
So it blew me away what you were talking about again in our first episode of if you a middle income, if you took a $45,000 a year salary, which is about the median income in the U.S.
Yeah.
And you multiply it
simple
by that
math,
11
right?
years of human labor in a barrel of
That's
oil. 500 grand.
Yeah, $500,000 is the energetic value of that barrel of oil if you compared it to
And
human
what do
labor.
we pay for oil?
I mean, it's varied over time. It's been as low as $20, even lower sometimes, up to 100. Our economy shook and shuddered and tipped into recession. In 2008 and 2009. There were other reasons, but oil prices went up to $147 a barrel. That was historic highs.
Yeah.
That really rocked the economic world.
It's not quite
right?
$500,000.
No,
is it?
$147. Now we're hovering between whatever $40 and $80 a barrel, and that price, we're so dependent on it being cheap. Actually creates ripple waves in our economy if it changes too much, too low or too high. But you compare that to $500,000 in terms of human labor equivalent.
We've locked into that need to have it cheap, right? And
Yeah.
electricity, too. It has got to be cheap.
It's crazy cheap. So this one I actually know because I got to pay the power bill. The average cost, it's 13 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity.
in the U.S.
Yeah, 13 cents.
Yeah.
And a kilowatt hour, if you're not sure of it, I mean, that's the equivalent of what a really hard days of work, like not 8 hours, but 15 hours.
Right.
Working hard.
Working hard.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
We're not talking about sitting on your computer and posting things onto Facebook, right?
Right.
But if you wanted to do that, you could. A kilowatt hour will run 6 laptops all day long.
So, if you're getting paid $20 an hour for 15 hours, that's $300, right? So if you were to
Right.
pay someone $300 for a day of hard work,
Yeah, and that's not even paying them real well.
Yeah, that's
you know.
that's decent for labor, but
But
equivalent of minimum wage.
13 cents.
Yeah.
You can't buy anything for 13 cents, let alone a whole day's worth of labor.
Yeah.
And so no wonder we take it for granted because it's so damn cheap, right? It's available to us. We flip a switch. We turn on the ignition.
What does
whatever.
a kilowatt hour get us now, like in our home?
Well, like I said, it'll get you laptops for 6 hours. It'll
Okay.
get you, let's say you want to microwave your lunch. You could do 30 of them.
Okay. Great. I want to wash clothes.
You could do 2 loads of laundry.
Okay.
Well, I think that's just the washer, though.
Okay, dryer.
Dryer's going to be a mess.
Darn it.
But who cares?
I'll hang
Who
dry.
cares? It's 13 cents.
I'm going to hang dry.
Yeah, sure. That's why people don't hang dry because it's so damn cheap, right?
Well, you just said not only is it cheap, but it's so available, which is our fourth question. How available is this stuff and how much are we using? I think of it as being so available that you never have to think about it. I mean, think about taking a family vacation, right?
Okay.
Maybe you're going to go, I don't know, last summer I went hiking in the mountains, right? And we did just a shitload of planning on how much food do we need per day. I guess this is your
You don't want to get hungry.
This is your endosomatic,
Right.
It's like you don't want to
care
be
about
short.
that.
So you're hiking up and down hills. You pack your food very carefully. I didn't give a second's thought to how am I going to get to the mountains. And
Right.
you just jump in the car. And
You're just going to push a car there, right?
Exactly. You just drive to the
those
trailhead.
roads. Yeah.
Just drive right to where you want to go, and it's just there. Especially, I know that's not the case for everybody all over the world, but here in the U.S.,
Right.
it's so available. It's just so part of our lives. And you talk about exponential growth in the economy, the exponential growth of consumption. This is all due to energy. I mean, since 1850. Our energy use has increased by more than 8 times per person.
Per person.
Per
and our
person.
population
And then
is also
multiplied by
increased.
people. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've had this massive change in how much energy we're using, and it's such a short time. It's less than 200 years.
Right.
And we think of that as really, really long history, but that's
It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's not. And the truth is that for 99% of our history as a species, we're actually living off of what people call solar flows or our solar income, right? We were harnessing plants and animals that eat plants and firewood and mussels, right?
Yeah.
Our own labor and the labor of domesticated animals. That's what we lived on. Maybe some wind for winter, for windmills. That's what we lived on for 99% of our
That gives me some
history.
comfort, actually, to think that, okay, I'm pretty soft, right? And I'd be scared not to have all this exosomatic energy I'm used to.
Yeah.
But then I realize if you travel around the world or if you think about history that, wait a second, I'm really just like those other people, either my ancestors
Right.
or people in other parts of the world that don't have 50 barrels of oil per year for them available. So I could probably survive if I had a culture around me that helped me negotiate that.
Not me. I'd be dead in 10 minutes. But the crazy thing about it is that, you say, well, if it were taken away, and I think a lot of people think that it's going down, we're developing renewable energy.
Oh, no,
and
we're just adding.
it's crazy. We have a colleague at Post Carbon, a guy named David Hughes, who studies kind of what would you say, share the macro picture of energy, looking at what's happening in the fossil fuel industry. He recently gave us the stat that 50% of fossil fuel burned since 1850 has actually been burned since 1991. So if you talk about all that we started burning in 1850,
That was the year I graduated high school.
yeah,
I was in college.
1991.
Yeah,
It's just
it's shocking.
and 75% since 1970.
Right.
Oh
so
my
in
God.
our lifetime.
That's my life. I was born in 1969.
Yeah.
So 75% of all fossil fuels have been born in basically
been
my
burned.
lifetime. Burned.
Yeah.
I was born, so they've been burned.
There is a theory about fossil fuel being born in 1970, but we're not going to buy into that one.
But that I think is, and we talked a little bit about exponential growth in a previous episode. That's, I think, the key part of this is that our use of energy over time, Jason, you talked about how we've gone through these energy transitions. They've tended to be additive, right? And even though we're adding on renewable energy and we're seeing dramatic growth in renewable energy right now, it's literally just adding on. In fact, it's not even adding on as much as fossil fuel growth.
Fossils
is
are
adding on.
growing more than renewables right now.
And it's just, it has to do more people consuming more energy and more things, right?
Well,
So-
today,
and biomass too is more. Biomass is about the same as in 1850.
what do you mean by biomass?
Like wood, wood and like straw aftermath.
So-
We're using as much biomass as we did in 1850.
how much whale oil are we using today?
Not
so much.
We've declined in that.
Yeah, we got rid of those guys.
Yeah.
you can't harvest whales at that
Not if
rate
you wanted
anymore.
to, yeah.
Well, so I think we've answered some of the key questions about energy literacy, but if you want to take it to the next step, there's a concept that I think we all got to know about, and that's energy return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
The basic way of thinking about that is how much energy do you have to expend to get the energy resource that you're looking to use? So, like back in the early days of oil, what did you just had to like take your pickaxe and hit the ground and this gusher comes
Or
up.
shoot at a squirrel, right? And
Yeah.
then like Jed Clampett.
That was a great show.
That was a documentary.
Beverly Hillbillies.
What was the name of the daughter of Jed?
Was it? I'm gonna try Ellie Mae. but
Okay,
is that
she was a great wrestler. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
I remember she just kicked ass.
well, Jason? You were a college level.
That's why you
NCAA
remember.
That's what
wrestler,
inspired
right?
me.
That's why you remember that.
Exactly. All my moves I learned from her.
Well,
So
it's true. In the early days of the oil industry, the returns on investment were astronomical, more than 100 to 1.
yeah,
you know?
like he fires his gun at the ground. Oil comes up. He's getting like 100 barrels for every barrel that he has to spend looking for it.
Yeah. And not only is it important to understand the energetic value of like oil in this case, which is, I would say, arguably the most important source of energy that we have, including all fossil fuels. But just think about the example of animals in nature.
Yeah.
You know, this idea of energy return on energy investment is not just a financial calculation, right? You're not just thinking about, I got to expend this amount. Like people talk about ROI, return on investment. You spend this amount of money to get this amount of money. It's true in all forms of energy. It's an equation, right?
Yeah.
So you take a cheetah, that's trying to chase down a gazelle in the African savannah, right? There's a calculation that's happening there. If that cheetah, for all the energy that it's expending running 70 miles per hour to try to chase down this thing, fails too many times, it dies, right? It needs to get more energy out. Not just in that one moment where it's chasing after that gazelle and catching it, but it needs to get more energy out from that gazelle for every time before that it's run and failed, right? Because they fail most of the time, right?
Yep.
So this is just part of the physical world. And the thing that's so amazing about fossil fuels has been that the return on that is astronomical.
But that's changing, right? You look now, how do we get our fossil fuels? I mean, the U.S. became the largest producer of oil and natural gas by fracking.
Yeah.
And we're doing things like putting these drilling rigs in 3,000-4,000 feet of water.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a clear distinction between the quote-unquote good old days where you get a gusher, and you can actually go look and see these old historical photographs of these just towers of oil shooting up into the sky, hundreds of feet, right?
Delicious.
All that pressure, just shooting up. And now what we're dealing with is needing to put billion-dollar deep oil rigs in the ocean to go down tens of thousands of feet, to try to get oil from below the fucking ocean,
thousands of feet
or
sometimes.
going up to the arboreal forest in Canada and scraping up
Sand.
this bitumen, which is basically unfinished oil,
Right.
that we got to cook.
It's goo and
You know what I mean?
sand.
Or fracking, which is basically going down, drilling laterally for thousands and thousands of feet, shooting a ton of water and sand and chemicals in there to blast apart these rocks to get these little tiny pockets of oil to come out. We picked the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And now we're having to go after stuff that's harder to get and has a lower energy return on
What
energy
you
investment.
just described, and this is why it was easy for me to understand this, is a biologist. Okay, so in biology, and ecology, there's what's called optimal foraging theory, and it's just what you said. Any organism is going to go find and locate the most energetically profitable resource
Absolutely.
first.
Yeah.
They're going to forage optimally. And then when that runs out, they're going to switch. So like the cheetah goes after the impala. The impalas get a little rare. They have a hard time finding them. So they go after the hyrax or whatever, right?
Right.
A smaller animal, less abundant, but they still good. After a while though, if they hunt out that, then they're going to something else, like a little rat. And the next thing you know, they can't get enough rats. And the cheetah population starts crashing.
Yeah.
As soon as you understand optimal foraging theory, everything you just said of energy return on investment, and you just look at what we're doing as a civilization, going after this crap, basically, in desperation moves. And we call it, oh, we've unlocked this new resource. And we just think we're all awesome. And
Yeah.
I go, you idiots, you're just like, you're following the declining quality of resource in an optimal foraging theory situation. That's a sign of desperation. Oh, God.
But we think because we have been for the last 150 plus years living on this bounty, we won the lottery,
Yeah.
right? We won the energetic lottery.
Yes, we did.
Beyond the imagining of humans before us,
That's
beyond the
incredible.
imagining of other organisms on this planet,
Yes.
we won the lottery.
I picked my
And-
numbers. They came up.
And we feel like, it's kind of like somebody born on third base thinking that they hit a triple. Yeah. We just feel like we earned this thing. It's going to always be here.
Oh, we're
Do you know
so
what I mean?
great.
And we're dependent on, in our minds at least, we're dependent upon this stuff being available, this stuff being cheap, this stuff being just incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
So I love this lottery metaphor because lottery winners tend to blow their money on
ain't-
some
Yeah,
pretty-
it ain't
it's
good.
not a good
things.
track record.
So I was wondering, like, if we're looking at what are the dumb things that lottery winners spend their money on, what are the dumbest uses of energy that you guys see that make you go, we are an insane species?
Well, there are so many of them. I'll
Oh,
just
my
tell you one that
God.
kind of sticks in my craw these days because I've been seeing this, here and there. It's such an expression of kind of where we are as a society these days. Drive up grocery stores. Okay. I mean, they have these concepts of drive-through grocery stores where you're
Okay.
like literally driving your fucking car down the aisle.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
That's the laziest thing ever. I mean, I think that those are probably still in the concept phase. But hey, right now you can drive. You could do that at certain WalMarts, Amazon stores have
Really?
that. Like,
Really?
you basically go on your fucking computer, pick your nose, order toilet paper or whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah, sure.
Bonbons or
Yes.
cheese doodles. Is,
Wow, you make good orders.
yeah, I'm giving you a clue, a little glimpse into my shopping. But so you order this stuff. Okay, let's say you order some organic beef in there too. But
Sure.
you
Kale,
order this stuff,
kale.
and then you drive your 3,000, 4,000 pound vehicle by yourself up to the drive-through,
Yeah.
and some poor schlub, some kid, or most
It's a
likely.
robot.
Oh, well, we'll get there, but most likely it's somebody who should have retired a long time ago and can't, right? Has to carry your shit out to you and load it up in the back of your car, and you drive off. Probably not even giving
This
them a
is called
tip.
progress.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
well,
sure.
You don't have to get your fat ass out of the car.
we're making the progression to always having your butt glued to the seat of your automobile.
Yeah.
I hope they make it so you can drive straight into your living room and
We're not in space yet, but it's not far from that vision of Wall-E. Those people sitting there basically in that
right.
movie.
Yeah.
Just sitting there with the entertainment.
You give me time to think, okay? And I've come up with one.
All right.
Okay. So one of my pet peeves has been like mini storage, right? You get the roll up door and you just throw your junk in it.
Right, because you have so much shit you can't fit in your house
Yeah,
anymore.
of course. It's like my garage isn't big enough anymore. I'm not parking my car in the garage because there's no space there. I'm going to park it out front of my house.
Right.
And then my garage is going to fill up with shit. And then oh shit, my garage is filled up with shit. So now I need mini storage. But it's gone a step further.
Okay.
Okay. Because now they have climate controlled.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
That's good.
storage for your shit. So
Right.
yeah, you don't want your
So
shit to have. Yeah,
we're burning the oil to keep your stuff at
That you never
at
touch.
room temperature.
yeah. That you never. How often do you
Well,
go?
this is huge though for the Hannibal Lecters that want to keep their bodies cold and
Right.
not
Okay.
stinking.
Okay.
So.
Okay. I see that.
It reminds me of you guys ever seen that George Carlin bit, "A Place for My Stuff"?
Yeah.
Classic bit.
Okay, I gotta check it
Fantastic.
out. Okay.
Yeah, but he couldn't even imagine when he first wrote that bit, that we would be we'd be making sure that shit, is kept at this perfect optimal temperature of 63 degrees or whatever.
Yeah.
the hell it is.
You guys pick like kind of sane stuff. The
Sane?
the dumbest use
This is
of
crazy
energy.
town. What are you talking about?
The one that I found was ski Dubai.
What?
Oh.
Those two words together don't belong.
Yeah, where are the mountains?
Right. No, they put this glass structure up, and they put
Wait, where's Dubai? First of all, for the geographically challenged
in the Middle
among us?
East, in the desert.
Okay, just to be clear,
Right.
Okay, the Arabian Peninsula.
far from the poles,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I don't know what the average temperature there is.
Well, we're
but-
doing a good job of raising it right now.
Yeah, we're working on that. So they built a sort of a glass structure, and there's a ski mountain. They make the snow from God knows what water source.
The tears of children.
Yeah, right. They actually they have penguins in there too.
The penguins are just looking around like, what the fuck is going on?
Can I go home?
Right. So here we have
Ski Dubai. People actually ski in there.
Yeah. There's ski instructors. There's a lift to take you to the top of Ski Dubai Mountain or whatever it's called. Yeah,
Delusion Mountain.
yeah,
I kind of want to go.
yeah. I'm sure it's on the bucket list of plenty of people.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have to get out of your car and you can keep your ski gear in a climate-controlled storage unit.
Hey, that sounds like heaven.
Well, so obviously we've got some wasteful things going on, but I think we can all agree what an incredible gift fossil fuels have been. I mean, how can you not be thankful for the amount of, whatever you said, the 500 virtual people that work for us?
Oh, I've been getting coal for Christmas for years.
I will say, I think people who are concerned about climate change or other environmental issues, they tend to think of fossil fuels as, and understandably, as basically imperiling the fate of humans and other species on this planet, right? So they tend to vilify fossil fuels, again, understandably, because there's this huge cost that's been borne. Not only are these sources of energy that we've come to be dependent upon depleting, right?
Right.
That we just talked about. They have this huge cost on human health and on the health of other species, but on our very viability of living on this planet. So I think a lot of people don't, frankly. I would say there are very few people who walk around thanking their lucky stars for fossil fuels, right? I mean, because if anyone's even thinking about it, which is maybe like a couple percentage of the population, they're probably thinking about the problems that they cause. Very, very few people are thinking about what, like we said before, a lottery, winning this has been for us.
Yeah, it's really weird.
And you've pointed out several times this year that we really need them right now to use fossil fuels as a way to get off of fossil fuels, to make the transition to a renewable energy economy.
It's such a weird paradox and contradiction.
Yeah, to me, that kind of stuff it's kind of maddening. It's the essence of Crazy Town. It's that here we are stuck in this system that doesn't work, but we can't really get out of it.
But the place that we have to start is just even understanding.
Just knowing.
Understanding not just the role that fossil fuels play in society and the issues that we have, the vulnerability we have to that dependence, right? Both from the standpoint of being dependent upon something that is depleting and being dependent on something that is literally destroying our chances of living on this planet, but energy as a whole, more broadly, because it's been so abundant, because it's been so cheap, because it's been so easy, because it's been so powerful, we take it for granted.
Right.
None of us want to be taken for granted, and we should not be taking this incredible gift that we've been given as a species for granted. So the first place to start is recognizing how we use energy. That's each of us individually and us as a society, and asking questions about the fucking things that we're wasting it on.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it's about becoming literate. Get out there, understand why energy is important and what the level of power that's embedded in it. Try toasting a piece of bread with a bicycle sometime, or push your car down to your mechanic.
Yeah, let us know how that goes, by the way.
Right.
Spend our inheritance wisely, right? Invest properly. Don't just blow it.
Otherwise, we're going to be a laughing stock of future species.
I think there should be a rule. Like, let's say you had a barrel of oil and you spilled it. Then you would have to do 11 years of hard labor because that's what you just spilled.
Well, I wish maybe we could do that. You don't have to literally go and buy a barrel of oil. I don't think you can actually go as an individual and buy a barrel of oil. That'd be an interesting test. But figuratively speaking, we're not spilling 50 barrels of oil on average, each of us here in the United States, but quite a big chunk of that is wasted, right? Yeah. So you think about that, maybe we should think about what we could do to make up for that incredible waste.
Well, I'm going to get on outside and start dumping over some barrels. I don't know about you guys.
I'll help you push it. It's really hard.
Yeah.
I'm going to go be chasing gazelles and see if I have any luck.
All right.
All right. See you next time on Crazy Town.
That's our show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the podcast. And while you're at it, rate or review it at iTunes. That really helps get it in front of more people. To learn more, visit postcarbon.org/crazytown. And if you want to actually learn something instead of listening to us bozos, you should check out Post Carbon Institute's Think Resilience course. It's 4 hours, $20, and will seriously change the way you see the world. Catch you next time on the mean streets of Crazy Town.
Hey, guys, we have a great sponsor today.
Really? Who is it?
It's Plastic Shitbox. Do you know about them, Rob?
PlasticShitbox.com. Yeah, I subscribe.
Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, each month, Plastic Shitbox will send you a box of plastic shit.
No way.
And the best part is, I think the box is plastic, too.
No.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to get in a plastic shit box.
So what did you get this time?
Some plastic shit. You know what it actually was? It was like a plastic dog shit. You know, the fake stuff that you can put on the rug, and then people come in and are like, "Oh my god,
oh, that's awesome!"
Is it 100% plastic every time?
Yeah. Well, you know what's really cool? So I open my plastic shit box, and I pull out the plastic dog shit, and it's wrapped in plastic.
Oh,
so not only did I get the shit box plastic, I got the plastic dog shit, and I got the plastic wrapper.
Did you get a micro dopamine hit on that?
Three fucking plastic shitbox dopamine hits, and the dopamine was wrapped in plastic too.
Oh gosh,
I think they call that a pill.
Well, only if it's wrapped in plastic.
What's the website again?
PlasticShitbox.com.
I'm looking at it.
Okay, how much does it cost?
You don't know because you pay with plastic.
Right. There you go. All right, so everybody visit PlasticShitbox.com and you can get your little dopamine hit today.